Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. I'm coming to you with my Sunday's Art of Truth. I'm going to do a quick intro, real time, and then I will be doing a voiceover for the rest of it. So today we're going to create in my large journal. I believe it measures 11 by 14. But I'll be sure to link it in the supply list over on my blog, and the link to the blog can be found in the description box. So today I'm creating, it's so interesting how we get inspired. So I got the inspiration for this project about 3 days ago, and I just knew that it was supposed to be around new beginnings, but I really didn't know what that meant because I pray a lot about that. So I spend a lot of time kind of being introspective, pondering, thinking about a variety of things. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to go with it. I have no idea what I'm going to create. And then last night in a conversation with my sister, I figured it out. So I'll be talking about that a little bit over on the blog. It's a huge deal, this concept of new beginnings in the arena that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to create around that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a voiceover for the rest because my mixed media can tend to go sideways in a hurry, and I don't want you guys to see unnecessary fiddling and pausing and looking for things, and it's a lot to cut out if I have to do that. So we're going to just get going here. I'm going to start by just showing you some of the supplies that I'll be using. I've got my glazing medium for a glaze, my raw umber fluid acrylic, my Liquitex fluid matte medium, Crafters Workshop modeling paste, distress crackle paint, which was epic in this project. I did not end up using those inks. I have my gesso as well, some tools, and this stamp. I believe it's called Vintage Ledger or something. That's a Sean Petit stencil. It is Spring Words, I believe. We'll be using that, and I did not end up using that stencil. I do use this gorgeous one. It's from her newest release. I'm using some of the pages that you see here. I wanted to come in and add a little bit more of color to the background. I collaged this last night. I got all of those vintage papers on there last night, and then I came back in and decided that I wanted to add a little bit of color into the background. So I'm going to be working on that here. I'm going to go ahead and let you just watch. I'm just going to use my tear ruler here to go ahead and tear down some of these papers. I'm going to use 3 bits of this yellow paper. This is from Sean Petit Collage Packs, and I'll be using the larger print of the door that I'm actually using as my focal point. I printed it larger and it was too big for the page, so I decided to go ahead and just tear it up and use it as part of the background because I did want some more color to pop through any of the texture. I didn't want just those neutral colors. So I had it in my head to go ahead and use these vintage floral bits, but I did not end up using them at all. I thought about putting them up down at the bottom towards the like next to the door when I got the door on, but I'm not real great at creating a scene. I do more of a random kind of mixed media kind of flow, and so it's really hard for me to build a scene. I am enrolled in Sean Petit's Insider art. I don't know what it's called, Insider Dealio. Anyway, I do pay a small fee every month. I haven't done much with it, just life and other focuses, but I do keep the enrollment because I want to be able in the summer to go back and catch up and watch a lot of the workshops that are offered, as well as just have some opportunity to watch what she's been doing in the Insider group. So that's why I haven't unenrolled. I've been toying with it every month, but I'm like, you know, it's $15 a month. It's well worth it. So, and it supports her business. So I'm glad to do that. Just playing there with the placement of the small door there. With my wisteria stencil, because I want that wisteria to come over the door, as you see there. So it turns out absolutely stunning, as you probably already saw with the opening photo. So I am going to go ahead and adhere these yellow bits, and again I'm using 3 pieces of it, and just putting them on with my fluid matte medium in a few different places here on the spread, as well as I will be doing that with the blue. That purplish floral you saw was something I thought about using and decided not to even get that. I didn't use it at all, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm going to let you go ahead and watch as we adhere these papers. I'm going to take a moment to just dry this really quick. And there we are, the magic of YouTube. I am going to come in with some gesso. I was just pointing there on the top of that lid where it's really illegible now, but that is my gesso little container. So I decided here I started with my finger and then decided to go with the palette knife, which is preferred for me when I am using gesso. When I'm using paint, I generally like to use my fingers, but I don't know why. Who knows? But I did decide to do that here. I really like kind of the, it creates a lot of texture when I use the palette knife versus my finger, and gesso is very porous, and so it does help add additional texture to the piece. So I'm going to dry that again. There is a lot of drying and steps in this project. It was actually about an hour and 15 minutes long in real time, just because of all the drying time. And as I mentioned before, I can't pause my video. I either have to stop it and restart a new clip, or just leave it running. And it just kind of depends on my brain space whether or not I leave it going. And I did leave it going today, so there was tons of stuff to edit out. So there I was just marking the area where I want my door to go. And the white that you see around the door, that you'll be able to see better in just a minute, it looks like it's pretty white, but it actually has a lot of really interesting texture, and so I wanted to leave it in to give it a little bit, give that door a little bit more of a lighter frame than what I potentially would get with what is underneath it currently. So And I will also be coming in with a little bit of gesso around the those straight edges of the door piece to soften that and make it blend in a little bit more. Gesso is a great kind of neutralizer as well. It really helps push things back in addition to creating some really beautiful texture. And here I'm just using my finger just because it's such a small little bit that I'm doing here. So as you can see, I have accentuated the white around that, which is really helping the door in the final product to really pop out and stand out as the focal point. So again, drying, making sure that's dry, and then I'm going to come in with this stencil and some of the Turner Yellow, the Liquitex Heavy Body paint. It looks like, oh, I forgot to take this out. I was going to actually remove this from the video. I was going to try the deep turquoise through the stencil, but then I thought that was going to be way too bold. So here I'm just kind of, oh, sorry guys. Oh, goodness, I just now finished this video too. I have no excuse for the memory lapse here. So that was the deep turquoise in the Liquitex Heavy Body paint. I am squirting it out on my mat and adding some water to make it a lot lighter. This is a very staining color because of the pigment that is in it. So it's a really deep kind of a phthalo blue. And so here I'm going to spritz it with water as well while it's on the page. And I could tell that it was already staining because the water didn't move it as much as it would have moved other colors of paint. So I did just want a little bit more of that color around the door. And I do break that up with some other colors, as you'll see as we move along. But I think it was a nice addition and it matched the door perfectly. So I was really pleased with that. I've used this door in a couple of other mixed media projects. I did one that was a canvas where I used the door as the focal point, and it was really beautiful as well. I'm really into playing in the art journal because it is, even though I do videos, it is still a kind of personal and a safe place to create. So there I was thinking about just splattering, and that was just silliness. So I just wiped it back up. And as per normal for me, I did put way too much paint out and had to wipe it up. So now I'm going to come in with the Turner Yellow. I'm not worried about that being dry because yellow and blue make green. So if I get a little bit of color mixing, it's not a problem. So I'm just using a makeup sponge and coming in with this stencil. I don't remember what this one's called, but I will be sure to link it again in the supply list. So, and we are already getting a little bit of a green mix here. I can see under the edges of that stencil, but it turned out really beautiful. It was really faint because the yellow is not a very bold color, as well as the lines in the stencil were pretty thin, but I really loved the look. Again, this is from her new stencil line. I believe it's her spring release, or maybe, yeah, her spring release, I believe. So if you have never checked out her website and her art, she's an incredible mixed media artist, very inspirational, very easy to watch. She has a ton of workshops. If you're ever interested in dabbling in mixed media, her website is the place to go, because she offers a lot of beginner workshops, and they're very affordable in my opinion. And you get to learn a lot of techniques. So she's awesome, and she's just really down to earth, really gentle and inspirational. She kind of writes like she creates like I do. She speaks her Sunday's inspiration, and I write my Sunday's Art of Truth. So that's the main difference there, but we kind of create in the same fashion in terms of the inspirational piece. So another dry there. And now we're going to come in with the Wisteria stencil. I do have this one in a 12 by 12 as well, but it's far too big for this page, so I did have to move the stencil and dry in between. But I'm going to go ahead and use my Crafters Workshop modeling paste to go ahead and stencil on this beautiful wisteria. I have also used this stencil before in another project, and I really love, I just love this idea of this place that is kind of semi-hidden, kind of like the secret garden. You remember that story when you were a kid? And just the mystery and the adventure that was found in that place. It kind of reminds me of that. And when you hop on over to the blog, if you're interested, and you read the Sunday's Art of Truth, that is the inspiration for this piece, as I mentioned in my opening words, you'll be able to get a little bit of a better glimpse at what my thought process was here, and why this, even the wisteria and this kind of secret garden, magical, safe place is a part of the story. So I hope that you'll hop on over and check it out. Again, that will also be linked in the description box. And if you follow that link, you can read the blog as well as check out the close-up photos and the supplies I used. So there you saw I did go ahead and zap it again. I wanted to make sure that the stenciling on the right side was completely dry, because I did have to overlap the edge of the stencil. So it doesn't take too terribly long. I just I zap it with my heat tool, dry it rather, and then I can move on a little bit quicker. So just gonna go ahead and apply that on this left side as well. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and give that another dry before we move on to the next step. Just touching that and making sure that it is nice and set. And I was pointing there to the bottom of the door, thinking that that's where I would that was the space I would reserve for the sentiment, but I did end up choosing a different spot on the piece. So I am coming in again with my Crafters Workshop modeling paste and using that same stencil that I did the stenciling with the yellow paint, coming over it again, not lining it up or anything, but just in that general area, creating some texture. I just adore the texture. I need the texture. It's part of how I express myself, because again, the texture and the layers speak to the process that I go through when I am creating. And there was the thumbs up. I really liked that addition. Visual texture is great, but sometimes I need the three-dimensional texture that stenciling with modeling paste creates, which is definitely what I needed here. So just going to finish up with that, and yeah, and then we'll move on. Another dry in. And now I had showed you this at the beginning of the video. I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to use it, but it is the Distress Crackle paint, and it is absolutely phenomenal, and you'll be able to see it better in the close-up photos at the end of the video and over on the blog. But it creates this beautiful crackle. I had used it previously and not very long ago in a mixed media project, and I didn't wait for it to dry enough. So the directions say that as long as you start seeing it cracking naturally, then you can hit it with your heat tool and speed up the drying process and the cracking process. This was absolutely beautiful. It created these really large bits of crackle that almost look like rocks in the lower left hand corner. But again, you'll be able to see that here, and you might be able to see it here. I don't think we really see the texture until we add some more medium to the top, but they're just showing you some of the background paper showing through, as well as the stenciling with that stencil with the yellow paint. And now I'm going to come in with my raw umber glaze and my my raw umber fluid acrylic, excuse me, and my glazing medium. And often I think I should not do the glaze, but and sometimes I regret it, but this time it was definitely the right move because this was way too light. There's not enough contrast. It doesn't look grungy enough for my heart. I guess I have a grungy heart. To me, a grungy heart is a heart that has a story to tell, and of places that it's been, and of people that it's known, and of struggles that it has had. When I think of vintage things and vintage history and things like that, those are the things that I think about. I love antique stores because I love just being in the midst of old things and imagining the story that they would have to tell if they could talk. And so this piece definitely needed the grunge. It definitely needed the raw umber glaze. So here I'm taking my baby wipe and wiping it back. And what it's done here, essentially, or for the most part, I guess, is it is leaving a tinge of the vintage grunge, and it's taking away the stark white of that modeling paste. It's way too white for me. And you can see there, hopefully in the lower left hand corner, you can see the crackle, like the rocks that I had mentioned a minute ago, which I think I show you. I think I hold it up and show it to you here in a little bit, hopefully. If not, it is over, or it is at the end of the video in the close-up photos. So, and then I'm going to just come in a couple of different places here again, just to add a little bit more. And yeah, so I'm going to let you watch a moment, and we will be drawing again after this is done. So here, just going to show you a close-up real quick of that texture, and there's that crackle that almost looks like rocks. I just love it. I must have applied it really thick there because it was divine. And there's that background paper. I love, 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 love that postcard shone through, because again, that speaks to me. It's part of the inspiration. It's part of the story about the places that we travel in our lives, and the destinations that we arrive at, and the things that we choose to go back and revisit, which again, that will make more sense if and when you go and read the blog. So I hope that you do. I always create it with the intention of just inspiring people and helping people know that they're not alone in whatever struggles they might be having with their jobs, their families, their family of origin, their history, all of those things. So here I am coming in with this is Liquitex Heavy Body paint. It's called Brilliant Purple. I don't find it to be all that brilliant. I really actually feel like it's very opaque, and it's not one of my favorite colors, but I wanted the lighter base here on the wisteria. I knew that I wanted the wisteria to be purple because it contrasts with the, or it goes well with the blue, and it contrasts against the yellow that you're going to be seeing me kind of accentuate as I move through the rest of the process here. And so it was a good choice. I chose the heavy body just because it's really thick. It's easy to apply. It doesn't sink into the, it's not filling in all those spaces where I want the wisteria to actually look like wisteria. So I think I succeeded in that. And after this is done, I will be coming in with Dioxazine Purple, which is also a Liquitex Heavy Body paint, another one of my favorite colors, super vibrant and super staining, but a gorgeous color. So that's going to help give some dimension to the wisteria here. I'm almost out, which I need to put that on my list of things to pick up either at the art store or Amazon or something, because this is a go-to color for me a lot of times. I'm not a big fan of purple, but I think I love it in florals. I've done a lot of watercolor in purples and violets and things like that. So just going to let you watch here as I go back and forth between these colors. I believe I do come in and put in another bit of the lighter purple on top of the Dioxazine Purple here, but I'll let you watch and see. Oh, here, forgot coming in with a smaller brush because I didn't want that purple. If I used my finger, the potential of getting that purple on the base rather than just on the wisteria itself was pretty high. So that's why I chose on with both of those colors, the brilliant purple and the dioxazine purple, with my smaller brush. Here's just a close-up of that paint. That wasn't very long. It looks really beautiful up close. So again, you'll be able to see that a little bit better in the close-up photos at the end. So here I was contemplating. I really didn't know from one step to another what I was going to do, other than I knew I was using the door and the wisteria. So that was really all I started with. So I did decide to bring in some of that, that lighter purple, just here and there around the page, especially concentrating around the edges, because I didn't want it to, I wanted it to all feel like it went together without losing the intensity of the door, which is the focal point. I almost wish I had done something underneath that door, but again, as I was creating, my intention was to use that space as the place for my sentiment, and I didn't end up doing that. But in real life, it looks fine. I mean, it's my journal. It doesn't matter. If I was creating this on a canvas, I might do that differently. But we're going to go ahead and get ready to dry this, and then we will move on to the next step. I'm coming in with a little bit of that Turner yellow across some of the texture that was created with that one stencil, the one that had the numbers and this design here. I really wanted to pump up again that yellow, as I mentioned earlier, because yellow and purple are complementary colors, which means that they are opposite each other on the color wheel. So when they are used together in the same project, they complement each other. But if they are mixed, they create mud. So they are complementary. In other words, if you strategically use them, they just will make your project just pop. But if you don't and you mix them, you're going to get an ugly result. So there again, just saw, I was drawing that obviously. Coming in again with the Turquoise Deep. This is the heavy body paint from Liquitex. It is an expensive product, but Liquitex and Golden are my favorite go-to acrylic supplies in terms of paint, high quality, very, very vibrant, pigmented. They have great light fast ratings, meaning they won't fade. Even though these are just in my journal, not all of my work is in a journal, and I don't want, if I gift somebody a piece or somebody has purchased a piece, I don't want it to go bad and lose its color. So I feel like I want that better quality product. So, and here I was kind of lightening that up, and I actually pulled up. Apparently the texture paste wasn't quite dry there, which happens to me routinely, but I do fix that with some yellow here in a little bit. Just wanting to, again, just have that color be represented throughout the page here. A lot of paint wasted. I don't know why I don't just pause and get something to kind of sop that up, but I didn't. So yeah, so here we're preparing for where to put the sentiment, and I'm kind of moving it around here and there because I wasn't I wanted it down below the door, but then I hadn't really looked at the stencil and realized that the word beginnings itself was way too long for that space. So I had to come up with a different plan. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp both the words new and beginning, on the door. And I'm going to center that beginnings there, from each side, making sure at the very least it's even on the door as well as it's straight. So, and I'm going to go ahead and use my black archival ink to do that. Here I realized I've got that Sean Petit stencils come with her name and the name of the stencil also cut like a stencil, so I'm going to use some masking tape and cover that up. I've actually had that transfer onto projects before. I don't really want it. I love her to pieces, but I don't really want that on my art, so I just covered it excuse me, with a piece of masking tape, and then I'm going to come in and stencil it again. And again, this is black archival ink from Ranger. It will not reactivate if it gets wet or anything like that, or when I seal this, because I do also seal my pages that are in my journal so they don't ever bleed or smear or transfer color. So there's our first word, and I'm going to center the new right above that. And then I will also be coming in with I can't remember what it's called. It's a permanent black marker to connect the lines, because these stencils, as you know, stencils generally need a little bit of help to connect those letters so that they look like they're one word. So that's what I'm doing here. I have to tell you that my Sunday's Art of Truth is the most rewarding creating I do in a week, but it is also the hardest because it takes me into deep places inside of myself that I'm always trying to work and grow in and learn from, as well as, because it tends to be that way, the editing is pretty intense, because I just, again, like I said earlier, I leave the camera running and all that, and so then I have to cut out the drying time and all that. So this has been like three and a half hours of my time taken just to do this project, but it is what I've been called to do. So, and I'm honored that I get to do it. So I hope that you enjoy it and that you learn something. And I hope that you're inspired to try mixed media, because it's a great way to express yourself. So here I am coming in with my fluid acrylic in iridescent gold fine. I love gold on my work. It always speaks to me of the preciousness of the message, the condition of the heart, the intentions, even when we make bad decisions. It's not usually our goal to hurt someone. It's not our goal to be cruel. Our hearts are, they're very fragile, and that we are always in a healing process. But the gold reminds me that we are refined, and we are whole, and we are loved, and we are royalty, and all of those other things that I talk about quite often in my work as I talk around my inspiration. So I love to add it, and so that's what I was doing there, just getting that gold just on top, mostly on top of the texture, and then I did come in, as you saw a moment ago, all over the wisteria as well, and you'll be able to see the effects of that in the final photos at the end of the video or over on the blog. There's usually more photos on the blog than there is at the end of the video. There we go, drying that again. And then the gold had really muted out the darker purple in the wisteria. So, and I apologize, this is off screen. I really was in the zone this time. So any of that looked a little off, I do apologize. It's tricky when I'm in that place and I'm creating, and I'm not looking at my monitor as often as I would be if I was creating another kind of project like my junk journaling kinds of stuff. So This takes a lot more of my mental capacity to do this. So coming in again with the dioxazine purple around all of the edges just to create a really beautiful frame. And there we go. There's a close-up of the wisteria's texture there. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I know it can be, I know a lot of people that follow me now are actually junk journalers, and it's hard to know how to apply these techniques to your junk journaling, but you can in little ways, and so I hope that it inspires you to try it out. So head on over to the blog if you want to read the inspiration. Talk to you soon, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.